Palermo, Italy. A powerful storm swept through the Sicilian capital overnight, unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and lifting parts and plunged parts of the city into chaos. The downpour, which began late Sunday, lasted several hours, flooded major roads, homes, and businesses across Palermo and nearly town. According to the Italy Severe Protection Agency, over 19 millimeters of rain fell in 2 hours, one of the hardest rainfall recorded in recent years. The city and the drainage system was quickly overwhelmed, tuning many arteries with the Viale Regione Siciliana in the fast-flowing rivers. Cars were seen drifting through the streets and emergency crews raising their rescue standing drivers. It was like a waterfall pouring from the sky, said resident Giovanni Bianchi. Those ground flood apartment was submerged. I lived these 40 years and never seen a rain like this. Authorities reported dozens of emergency interests from the clearing fallen trees and rescue elderly residents trapped in flooded buildings. Several neighboring, including Sierra Monzetta and Partinico, suffered blackouts after lightning strikes damaged power lines. The storm also disrupted air and sea traffic. Flights at Falconboschi Airport were delayed and diverted due to strong crosswind, and a ferry service connecting Sicily to Naples and Cagliari were temporarily suspended. Meteorologists from the Italy Air Force were the service explained that the storm was triggered by a low-pressure system moving the North Africa, coating with warm air, humid air from the Mediterranean, apart from the intense fire due to rising sea temperatures. Local officials warning that more severe weather will follow. The storms are becoming stronger and more frequent, said Major Roberto Lagala. We must adapt our infrastructure and changing climate. By early morning, the storm has moved eastward, leaving behind the mud-stretched streets, debris at the damaged vehicles. Volunteers joined fighters in clear efforts with the local characters provided to aid families to lost belongings. This event not Sacramento, how South Italy, in a front line of Europe's shifting climate where sudden storms, flash flood, and recovered heat waves are now part of a daily life.
Guardate come piove, come nevica a Pasqua.
The Italian island of Ischia near Naples have been devastated by powerful flood and landslides triggered by relentless rainfall. Torrents of water swept through the town, tearing apart flood, burying homes, moat, and leaving residents in shock at the state of destruction. In the town of Casamicciola Terme, one of the hardest hit era, houses were engulfed by the cascading mud and debris. It was like avalanches of water and the earth cascading down, said Rosa Espone, residents who narrowly escaped with her family. In seconds, everything were only goes down. Authorities confirmed multiple deaths, with the several people still missing as such, and the rescue operations continue. Dozens of residents were injured, while hundreds and evacuation from the unstable buildings. Schools, shops, and businesses remain closed as emergency crews clear blocked streets. Emergency snow cars overturned and half buried, with the rescue workers and volunteers did through their layers of mud with their hands to reach service. Power outage and damaged water supplies have left many communities isolated. The island's still terrain combined with the days of heavy rain triggered a series of landslides that shut down mountains into the coastal town. Experts noted that devastation and uncontrolled construction have worsened island's vulnerability to such disaster. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni experienced condolences to victim families and pledged immediate aid, calling the disaster a national tragedy. Italian Civil Protection Agency has deployed helicopters, driver, and special units to assist rescue efforts, with the local authority declared a state of emergency. The flood has also remained wider concern. Each popular tourist destination known for the hot spring and bridge is now facing questions about building safety and climate resilience.
por Dios. Voy a ir a recoger un cafecito a mi compa.
Rome was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a cobbled streets into the city rivers and shocking residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. Within minutes, major thoroughfares such as Via del Corso were covered in ice, bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, white ships were shattered, and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment, stones from the sky, said Marco DeSantis, who took shelter in the cafe where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded, and tram service were suspended. At Fiumicino Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered with slush and ground strength rushed to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Colosseum and up its ancient area to layers into ice accumulated to steps to Spanish stamps and Pisa, Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slippers on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Testorial and Toscana. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually large hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy. The small town of Albalif in province of Como was left in shock after severe hailstorm hit the area on a Monday evening, covering streets, cars and roofs with ice balls with the size of walnuts in some areas tennis ball. The storm, which lasted less than half an hour, caused significant damage but struck locals with a sudden ferocity. Residents described it chaotic stints and roads turned wild in a matter of minutes, forcing cars to stop. It was like an attack, where the hail was so strong that it broke roofs, totaled and damaged cars in seconds, said Maria Conti, a shop owner in the city center. Several houses had broken windows and an emergency service received dozens of calls for help. Firefighters worked throughout the night and cleared fallen branches to secure damaged roofs, with the local farmers reported significant crops losers, especially in vineyards and orange, were weeks away from the harvest. Agriculture Association estimated the damage of hundreds of thousands of euros. Videos posted online showed the streets Albaville resembling frozen river with the rain overflowing with a sudden rush in water and ice. Public transport were the disruption throughout the province of Como, and temporarily enclosures were put up in place to prevent accidents. Meteorologists explained the phenomenon as a result in a sharp rise in hot, humid air against the cold front moving from the northern Italy, and the collisions that can cause severe thunderstorm and hail. Experts also noted that climate change is increasing both with frequency and severity at such events throughout the region. Local authority urged residents to check instability in their roofs and vehicles, and the measure promised rapid assistance to those affected. Albaville was faced many storms, but this was one of the worst in recent years. We support our community in the recovery, he said. For the many residents of the province of Como, the storm was stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature, and the growing challenge is adapting to weather conditions. Hospitals reported an increase in administration while several schools closed after the roofs suffered structure damage. Rooms over the overbundled infrastructure succumbed to onslaught. Metro Line A was temporarily suspended due to flooding, and thousands of homes were left without power. Insurers estimated the damage could reach tens of millions of euros, which vehicles a safe ground of outdoors have been the most affected. Farmers in Lazio also suffered losses. Vegetables field and vineyard were hit by the phone. Agriculture Association described the event of the catastrophic blow and the higher the harvest season. Meteorologists linking the storm and wind of the most air and collided with the cold front conditions intensified by the expectation warm weather of the Mediterranean. This is a classic case of extreme weather amplified by climate change. Raising the alarm over significant damage to crops, vineyard and olive groves. The region economy were damaged, raising concerns about the shortage and price tracks. Local markets lost fresh produce, water and ice, and destroyed market stalls. A dramatic video approached the social media showing hailstone pelted down of the Colosseum with some cliff centimeters of the view of Meta in hour. Meteorologists warned that such severe weather, previously rare in Rome, could become common in rising sea temperatures, intensify storms in the southern Europe. At Rome, clear ice from the streets and eases the financial damage. The storm has represented the debate about the urban resilience, climate change adaptation, and the Italian capital's preparedness for the increasingly unpredictability of nature. The storms can suddenly catch residents and travelers off guard, with winding streets were transformed into rivers. At least 2 people were injured by falling debris and dozens were rescued from the flooding cars, and the Viale de Porco responded more than 500 emergency calls. "I've never seen anything like it," said Luca Perry, a taxi driver whose car was caught in the flood waters near Tiber River. "I felt like the sky was falling." The storm hit central areas hardest, including Trasteville, Tuscany, and San Giovanni, where entire intersection were flooded by flash floods, lighting lit up the sky over the Colosseum and St. Peter Basilica, creating unforgettable images that quickly spread on social media. "Rome looked at something out of the Bible," one eyewitness wrote online. "Thunder rumbled between the ancient monuments." Meteorologists from Italy's Severe Protection Department confirmed more than 19 millimeters of rainfall in less than 19 minutes. Late Tuesday night, a sudden hailstorm hit Rome, shocking the eternal city, and marble streets and historic squares were covered in ice. Residents described the storm as unexpected and terrified, with the hailstorm raged in the sides from the marble of golf balls, smashed cars, breaking windows, and damaged roofs. Central areas such as Trasteville, Pisa Venezia, and Termini were hardest hit, with the later levels rising rapidly in low-lying areas. Passengers were stranded on bases in cars, while residents sought shelters. "It was like a winter storm in the middle of summer," said Luca De Santis, owner of Cafe near Coliseum. "Customers ran into the cafe screaming as hailstones tore our umbrellas to pieces." The Italian fire service Viale de Fuoco received more than 300 emergency calls about flooded streets, fallen trees, and damaged cars. Several metro stations, including Barbary and Repubblica, were temporarily closed due to water inside the tunnels. Authorities confirmed that at least 10 people suffered minor injuries after being hit by hail or slippery on ice sidewalks. Late Tuesday night, a sudden hailstorm hit Rome, shocking the eternal city, and marble streets and historic squares were covered in ice. Residents described the storm as unexpected and terrified, with the hailstorm raged in size from the marble of golf balls, smashed cars, breaking windows and damaged roofs. Central areas such as Trastevere, Piazza Venezia and Termini were hardest hit, with the later levels rising rapidly in low-lying areas. Passengers were stranded on bases in cars, while Presidio sought shelters. It was like a winter storm in the middle of summer, said Luca De Santis, owner of Cafe Nea Coliseum. Customers ran into the cafe screaming as hailstorms tore our umbrellas to pieces. The Italian fire service Viale di Fuoco received more than 300 emergency calls about flooded streets, fallen trees and damaged cars. Several metro stations, including Barbary and Repubblica, were temporarily closed due to water into the tunnels. Authorities confirmed that at least 10 people suffered minor injuries after being hit by hail or slippery on ice sidewalks. Authorities estimated damage running into millions of euros. Meteorologists attribute the storm in the clash in a humid Mediterranean air with a cold front northern front, creating a supercell system capable of relaxing extreme energy over the short period. Social media exploded with the dramatic footage of hail bouncing the historic parades streets, resembling the ice rivers and residents walking through the water to reach safety. Authorities urged citizens to remain indoors, and an emergency crew working throughout the night to clear roads to restore electricity. By evening, Sicily town most cars the storm approached trees, flooded streets and damaged homes, several stark remind of nature's unpredictable power. Residents' capacity returned to assess the destruction, capturing haunting image of Mediterranean island under assault from the elements. On Tuesday afternoon, Rome experienced a shocking weather change. Heavy hail fell on the city, leaving an instant cover in ice and chaos. The warm and humid day quickly turned into sin and destruction as dark cloud gathered over the capital aid. Without warning, released hailstorm the size of walnuts with pelted cars, roofs and pristines. Within the minutes, the city's cobbled streets turned into ice rivers, and the ambulances series broke through the narrow valley and Trastevere and Tuscany. Locals took refuge in cafes, shops and metro station while the storm raged for nearly an hour. It was terrible, said Giovanni Moretti, a taxi driver who was cut off in the storm. The hail was so heavy and I could see road. I thought the white ship would break. The hail caused significant damage to it. White ship damaged cars and flooded low-lying area. In some parts of Villa Appia Nola, parked cars were flooded up to their doors, and a section of Rome metro lines A and B were temporarily closed due to water ingress. Firefighters received more than 500 emergency calls, including rescue of people from the stuck cars and flooded basements. A sudden and violent storm hit Sicily, leaving flooded streets and damaged houses, and residents trying to save themselves. Torrential rain, strong winds, and large hailstorms swept across the island, hitting Palermo, Catania, and Messina particularly hard. It was terrible, said Giovanni Bianchi, and residents of Palermo. The hail broke out windows, and the water poured in the streets like a river. I have never seen anything like it. Emergency service worked for the full capacity, responded to fallen trees, blocked roads, and stranded cars. Several rivers, including smaller turbulence in Catania, they burst their banks, forced dozens of families to evacuate. The streets to coastal town were impossible, and local airports responded to numerous delays and cancellation. Historical cities were also affected. In Palermo, flooded inundated part of the cathedral and Quattro Canti Square, while tourist centers such as Termini had to carry out emergency evacuation. Boats were washed away from their mooring, and the local market were forced to close. Meteorologists explained the storm as a collision between the Mediterranean low-pressure system and warm humid air from the Africa. This great short but extremely intense storm. Agriculture area suffered significant damage. Olive groves, vineyard and citrus orange by damage by the hail, threatening both local economy and exports. Authority called for emergency aid to affected farmers and businesses. The storm also disrupted air and sea traffic. Flights at Falconbelski Airport were delayed and diverted due to strong crosswind, and a ferry service connecting Sicily to Naples and Cagliari were temporarily suspended. Meteorologists from the Italy Air Force where the service explained that the storm was triggered by a low-pressure system moving the North Africa, coated with warm air, humid air from the Mediterranean, apart from the intensified due to rising sea temperatures. Local officials warning that more severe weather will follow. The storms are becoming stronger and more frequent, said Major Roberto Lagala. We must adapt our infrastructure and changing climate. By early morning, the storm has moved eastward, leaving behind the mud-stretched streets, debris at the damaged vehicles. Volunteers joined fighters in clear force with the local characters provided to aid families to lost belongings. This event not Sacramento, how South Italy in a front line of Europe's shifting climate where sudden storms, flash flood and recovered heat waves are now part of daily life. The human toll of storm is still being aced. At least 3 days have been confirmed so far, including the elderly man who drowned in flooding basement in Messina and young delivery driver who was swept away by flood waters in Catania. Dozens of people have been injured, many of them due to fallen debris and traffic incidents on the road, Middleside, Palermo or rain. Sicilian Governor Renata Citrelli visited the flooded areas on Tuesday, calling that the match helicopters and promised long-term support. We will not abandon our people. The recovery will be swift and complete, we promised during the press conference. Local volunteers arrived the affected areas, diverted flood and helping to clear debris. Social media is now filled not only image and destructive but also of solidarity. Neighbors stretch offering shoulders and young groups organized donated drivers. School in several provinces remain closed to damage assessment continue. Psychologists have been sent to provide assistance to children and families affected by trauma, especially in the hardest hit community of Gela and Lixita. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed the army to assist the evacuation force. Civil protection authorities have urged people in the affected areas to remain cautious to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited the affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas in exact button the impact of the recent storms. Sicily, normally bridge collapsed looks at the dew blow from the narrow fields and when green groups are now fast asleep at the mood and the water. Environmental warning in addition to human casualties, entire ecosystem have been temporarily destroyed. In the city of Noto, residents placed candles and the steps of historic cathedral in memory of the victims. Local presses helped open air masses in a flooded courtyard, calling the stretch and the unity. One of the Syrians, Lucia Manso, said, "We lost our beginnings, but not each other. The most important things." Meanwhile, the Italian army remained the standby with more than 400 soldiers destroyed across the isolated to clear debris, reinforce river banks to deliver aid to remove vigilantes. The EU has also experienced its support. A team from the US Civil Protection Mechanism has been sent to coordinate with the Italian authority, increasing the likelihood of international funding to support long-term recovery. Scientists emphasize this is only a high bridge of may become normal. Southern Europe is especially by the Mediterranean basin is becoming increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather events and the climate change accelerators. Rome was hit by unexpected and several hailstones that covered historic capital with a layer of ice, creating several scenes to resemble weather rather than early autumn. The sudden storm swept through the city on Tuesday afternoon, disrupted traffic, flooding subway station and forcing prediction to seek shelter. Local authority reported that hailstones, some the size of a golf ball, fell in nearly 20 minutes, covering squares, roads and even areas around the Coliseum. Emergency crew were disrupted to clear broken drains after torrential rain mixing with the ice caused flash flooding in several low-lying areas. Public transport was severely affected, with the several metro lines temporarily suspended due to water ingress. Drivers described terrified moments where the visibility dropped to almost zero. It was like a sky was falling, and the hail bending to so loudly, and the roof in the car was where could hit each other, said the city resident Marco Rossi. Businesses in the city center rushed to protect their shop windows, while cafes and restaurants along the Via del Corso lost their outdoor sitting areas which were destroyed with the hail. Social media quickly filled with the images of Rome cobbled streets turned into rivers and ice caused astonishment around the world. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused of the sudden collision toward Mediterranean air with a cold front and swept through the central Italy, an increasingly common pattern associated with the climate instability. Experts warned that such intense hailstorms are becoming more frequent in southern Europe. Despite the chaos, no serious injuries were reported, although dozens of people were treated in hospital to minor cars and businesses. The mayor of Rome urged residents to remain cautious, emphasizing the city's vulnerability to extreme weather events. For many Romans, the storm was stark reminder for the power of nature and the need to better preparedness in the era-changing climate realities. The Italian island of Sicily is battling catastrophic flooded and unprecedented rain turned entire town into disaster zone. Meteorologists have described the storm as a once-of-the-century event and official warning the full extent of the damage is not yet known. The streets of Palermo turned into rivers, cars were swept away by a building and underground garages were flooded in a matter of minutes. In Catania, residents were forced in a wet chest deep through the metro in the city center and hospital reported serious damage to emergency rooms. Messina, Sorrento, and rural mountain community were cut off by landslides. In less than a day, more than 250 millimeters of rain fell, almost as much in 4 months. Italy's Civil Protection Agency issued a red alert, urged residents to stay indoors. Helicopters and rescue boats worked around the clock to evacuate families trapped on the upper floor. At least 10 people were killed and more than injured and missing. I thought that it was the end, said Salvador Vital, a 64-year-old farmer who lost the livestock while floods inundated his field. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, boost their banks and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po, the Anguil, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency services to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions were put the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the city with the rising tides were activated shelters to mitigate the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to fare the higher ground. Meteorologists say the storm dumped over 8 mm of rain in just 1 hour, nearly half of rain average monthly rainfall. Experts link the event of growing instability of the Mediterranean climate. Falling the water, sea temperatures, ice sheets, storms are becoming more frequent or more destructive, said Dr. Erin Tufari, a climatologist of the University of Bologna. Video shared online showed massive hailstorm pelting the streets while the residents sheltered the cafes and metro station. In the suburbs, strong winds on the roof from buildings and left thousands without electricity. Major Roberto Giuliani was called to the emergency assessment, warning that the Rome outdated drainage system can no longer handle such tropical-style weather patterns. The storm here reigned debates about the Italy preparedness for the climate extremes. As one resident wrote on social media, Rome is drawing not from the history but from the neglect.